Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast, season review edition. This one is the Dolphins. We're on the home stretch with these. So I'm really thankful for everyone so far who's been able to listen and get involved, even if it's your team or it's not. I'm going off some of the numbers and stuff. I think a lot of people are listening just to get a bit of their content. So got Trav along again for the Dolphins side of things. And we sort of talk about the Dolphins. We look at their season, and they finished 10th on the ladder. That was 28 points, 11 wins, 13 losses, and a -1 points differential. So I think that sort of sums it up. It was sort of a bit of an up and down roller coaster sort of season for the Dolphins. There was a couple of really big key injuries at the start of the year, which we will touch on, that I think really impacted the team this year. And just that missing some of that experience sort of forwards and some of those really good impact sort of forwards really hurt the Dolphins this year. And then obviously things like the Wayne Bennett situation and how that impacted the team, that as well we'll talk about. But Trav, I'll throw to you. When we mention the Dolphins side of things, what do you think of when you think about their season?
I think for them it was a pretty good year. Yeah, I think it was a really quite an impressive year dealing with the things that they've had to deal with. Like you said, as you touched on about with Bennett, as you've been very loud speaking about Bennett coaching two teams, I think they've had to deal and manage that. The amount of injuries they had to manage and deal with. Second year this year, so it's still they're still only the second. They've still only been in the league for 2 years. Like it's for what they put up, 11 wins, 13 losses. I thought it was a bloody good year. I think they started off really strong. I think they tailed off in the last third of the season. And I literally just think that's because of the injuries caught up to them. I think the coach stuff caught up to them, and the fact that they're such a new club. I just think it tailed off, and I think it's a bloody good year.
You mentioned the fact that it sort of fell away, and it did. So they did start the year quite well and were in the top 8 for, I think, the first couple of months of the competition. That's how good they were going. And again, similar to last year, they did fall away. You mentioned some of the reasons there, which we will get into. But is there a little bit of cause for concern there now? That's their second year. They're very, very early into their NRL years and career in this competition, obviously. And it seems a little bit crazy to say, but we always say sort of losing and winning and all that sort of stuff becomes habit. Can this sort of thing become a habit? Not finishing strongly throughout the year? Is it a problem? Maybe some experienced sort of older legs in the team? I'm not too sure. I'm just posing the question. Is there cause for concern there now? That's 2 years in a row that they have sort of really just fell away.
No, I don't think there's a concern at all. I just think we still have to understand that they're still a baby. Like, they're literally a baby of a club, and they're still trying to figure it out. And they started off on a really tough foot. And what Bellamy did last year in 2023 was phenomenal. Like, they didn't get any of the big signings that they were listed down to, and they still probably, even going into this year we're hoping to get a few other big name signings that didn't really come about. So a lot of the players that they're playing with are, a lot, but there's a big chunk of their players that are not used to playing all year, not used to doing full pre-seasons, not used to that grind all day, every day. Like, I think they're just, to be able to still do an 11-13, win-loss record this year, compare it to last year, which was 9-15. That's 2 wins more, 2 losses less. They were better points for. They had 577 this year, and last year it was 520. So that's an improvement. And their defense got even better with 578 this year and 631 they allowed last year. So, like, the numbers stack up to being an improvement. It's only going to get better for them. I think we'll cover a few bits and pieces around what they have to manage and how they have to do it for 2025, I think, because that covers a bit of what they had to do this year. But I wouldn't be concerned whatsoever. It's an improvement. And, you have to laugh, like, the way that they finished off the year, the fact that in the middle of the season, they had 5 losses in a row. So even through the middle of the year, they still lost 5 in a row. They had a poor ending and yet still finished 11-13. Like, I wouldn't be disappointed.
They recruited quite well. Part of that comes down to the signing of Thomas Flegler, who was going to be a huge signing for them and do a really good job. And it comes back to now the sort of the start of the season where they lost Tom Gilbert quite early, and then they lost Tom Flegler as well very, very early. So both Thomases were gone. And unfortunately, I feel like from that moment, they were sort of battling a bit of trying to paddle up sort of, what creek. So it was not as you said, like there's a lot of respect to them for their season that they have had. They had their two big forward leaders, their two best forwards probably in that team out for pretty much the entire year. Unfortunately, that's Gilbert 2 years in a row now where he's missed a large chunk of the season, which isn't good. We don't wish that upon anyone at all. So that's obviously goes down to the point of that was definitely a reasoning for what happened there and the depth and things like that. A good thing that it showed was there was a bit more depth at the club now, and someone like you sort of, and we'll talk a bit more about him, but Max Plath really stepped up in that lock forward role, just became one of those real go-to guys in the forward pack, and quickly was able to sort of help steady that ship there in the middle and really steel up that defensive sort of unit and just be one of those energizer bunnies. He didn't stop. He really didn't stop. We've seen bits and pieces of Felice Kafusi trying to be that intimidating sort of forward and the like. So it was pretty gloomy, but it's not all. Sorry, it was a bit doomy, but it's not all doomy. There's a bit of gloomy there as well. So, and it did present themselves with some of these younger guys to come through, which again they'll be there for years to come. This is the baby of the NRL. They're getting better and better, and I think it will help them a lot moving forward. But it definitely sort of did hurt him in a way this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you summed it up really well, and it was kind of the points that we said to start the podcast. Like, the injuries that they had, and like Flegler to mine, which is something that I'll talk about when we get to the main questions at the ending questions. But Flegler for mine was a really, really important injury that really hurt them this year, and they really needed him to be able to play. But you're right, others sort of stepped up, which, became the enforcer of the psychopath, as everyone likes to call him. And but it also unearthed some superstar, I'm actually going to call him that, so a superstar in the making in Trey Fuller. And I thought Trey Fuller was a monster this year. So it unearthed some really, really big plays and players and depth for that club this year. So whilst the injuries hurt, it certainly opened them up for a nice start, a nice second season in the league.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. And I was quickly looking there, like Flegler played 4 games all up.
4.
Yeah, and Tommy Gilbert, just quickly looking there at his stats, and he ended up playing. I don't think, he didn't even play a game because he got injured in the preseason. So that's only playing 4 games out of those 2 players, and the max they probably could have played each. Quickly do a math off the top of my head. I think 46 odd games they could have been able to play. They played all games, so that's a huge amount of games to be missing, and to play 4 games out of a possible 46 or so that they could have played. That's huge.
But then add the other injuries. Not to try and cut you off there, sorry, boss. But like Herbie played 20, so he missed 5. JMK only played 17, so he missed 10. What is it? What do they play? 25 games, so 24 games. Sorry, so he's missed 7 games. Hammers played 16, so Hammers missed 4 as his 11 games. Hammer played Origin too, but he still missed 11 games there, plus the Origin stuff. So like that, it's hard to deal with 5 of your probably your top 5 players, and in core positions, man, like, and then
especially as sort of early on, like when, as we keep saying, they're the babies. Like they need their best on the field as much as possible to make sure that they're competitive week in, week out. And they surprised a lot. Like I do agree. It's a weird thing to say that they had a good season because they finished in 10th or so position. That's a weird thing to say. But when you look at it and peel back the curtains with a lot of the reasonings why, it was a pretty good season. It's one to build on. And one person that won't be there is obviously Wayne Bennett. He's since during the whole season, as it was going, it was rumoured to be going to South. We all knew It was only a 2-year thing here at the Dolphins. They signed up a new coach and stuff like that. How much of an impact do you actually now think, looking back on things, do you feel like this Wayne Bennett situation had on this club and this playing group? Because we all heard the rumors and it looked like more and more that it was happening, that Wayne was sort of had his foot in the door at South and helped managing that place as well, pretty much halfway through this year. So you can never coach two teams. It's impossible. Well, I don't care how good you are. You need to have 100% commitment to one project and one project only. Wayne Bennett, he's good enough to somehow try and balance it, but he wouldn't be able to do it. I think it had quite a say in it. I think it was, especially with this, again, the second year of this club, they just needed Wayne to be 100% all in with them and to achieve anything. And there was times there it looked like it was going to be a very special season. And if Wayne was able to get this team to the finals this year, I would have had that right up there with Wayne Bennett's accomplishments so far in his career. And that's a huge list. And to have that right up there with, I guess, what's been put at his disposal, I feel like it would have been right up there. But the Wayne Bennett saga, Trav, what do you think of it? How much of an impact did it have on this group?
Coincidentally, roughly around the time that he says that he was out, they lose that 5 in a row, end the season poorly. Coincident or not? Look, is it? I've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's Wayne Bennett. He's arguably the best coach to ever play or to ever coach. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt to say that he was able to juggle both. He constantly said he was doing that. He was all in on the Dolphins. Coincidence says one thing. My benefit of the doubt for the coach is to say that no, it didn't affect him at all. It was just unlucky.
It's what it has done this year. Like there's been a couple of players that have really stood up and stood out, in my opinion. And one of those we've already mentioned, Max Plath. I thought he was huge this year. To come from almost the clouds in a way, and to have the season that he has had, I don't think anyone out there expected him to be as dominant, I guess, in a way, or as known and sort of a key figure now, an element in this team as he has become this year. And again, I thought he was huge, Trav.
I was kind of hoping he would hide away for a little bit to the end of the podcast, as I was going to give him a massive rap, but I'll jump in now. So I thought he was a monster this year, man. Like he came sort of out of nowhere. I don't really know what to say about him. His year was awesome. He had to plug in that last chunk of the year when JMK got injured. By just saying JMK is Marshall King, and played the hooker role and played that really well. Like, so his versatility and his ability to play all across the park is just fantastic. He was a leader this year. He was a monster. He just stops in everything that gets put in front of him. He's strong with the ball. He's a good carrier. He just wants to run. He loves to do the dirty work. Like, he's just your perfect player. He's a dude that you can certainly build a club around. Yeah, no,
100%. I want to talk about Herbie Farnworth. You mentioned he was out for a couple of weeks, but I don't think Herbie started the year great, which was funny because we're saying the Dolphins started good and sort of fell away at the back end of the year. Farnworth was a bit different. I felt like Farnworth didn't start the year great, but then ended up actually coming better as the season grew for the Dolphins. And whether that was his role grew as well a lot more, he started to seem a lot more busy. He started to play a lot more sort of floating around, not just stuck on his edge. And that was really that was dangerous. We got to see some of the Dolphins' best football when Herbie got the ball and got more involved, which was going to be natural. He finished last year probably the best center in the game, and then to come into this team, when he was first signed, it was rumored that he was signing to be a fullback. Then we obviously seen the Hammers year last year, and that obviously had to change those plans. But they sort of started to seem like they worked out a way to have them both sort of in and around the ball and be part of things very well as the season went on. Is that a fair assumption about Herbie's season, and it felt like he grew as the season went?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he definitely did. He grew as the year went on, which is funny because they started off really well, the Dolphins, and he wasn't bad, but he wasn't up to the Herbie Farmworth that we know of. Is to being the premier center in the competition. And when they needed him to step up, he did. Unfortunately, he just copped a couple of bad injuries at bad times for him, and that really hurt them, particularly in that middle period there from round 5 to 10 when he didn't play. That was his games off. Like that really hurt. That really curbed a lot of their momentum. But yeah, he was phenomenal. Like he was fantastic. I mean, across the board, he averaged 170 run meters. He was a lock on for his defense in terms of his tackle efficiency at 90%. He had 7 try assists, 10 line breaks, and 8 tries himself. That's a pretty good year for a player like him.
Yeah, no, I agree. A final shout out I want to give at the moment is Isaiah Katoa, the young playmaker at the Dolphins, 20 years old. And to me, I actually thought he was sensational this year. I know there was a lot of pressure on him. He sort of started to really live up to become sort of the main guy in this team, playmaker. There's been a lot of money and development put in by the Dolphins for him moving forward as well. I think he's starting to live up to the hype. I know he did have a pretty good series with Tonga as well. Maybe was overawed by the final against Australia and maybe the atmosphere and stuff, which is fair. He's 20 years old. And I just thought, look, he's not up there with the Clearys and stuff. I'm not going to try and lie about that or talk him up too much. But what I will say is that there were some moments I felt like this year where he just iced some of the big moments, and we're starting to see him more and more be that sort of player. And don't forget, he's 20 years old still. Like this kid, I'm so excited to see him in the next couple of years. Hopefully stay at the Dolphins. Hopefully he can grow with this club, and this club, they can both grow together and get the best out of each other. And the more that these sort of players like Herbie and Hammer and JMK and stuff start to play as well with him, I think they can all form a really dangerous combination that can do something very special there at the Dolphins. But back to this year, Trav, I just thought he was sort of under the radar in a way in terms of his season, how it went.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he is a bit under the radar. I sort of, when I was preparing for this podcast, I kind of looked at him and thought, and trying to remember of the games that I've watched and what I saw this year, and went, look, I like him. I know he's 20 years old. He's got potential, but he's not that good yet. He's not great. Now, I don't remember really seeing moments over the year where I really thought he was playing really well. But again, we have to remember that he is 20, like you said. He had to deal with all the injuries around him, and he became this major playmaker that he had to be because of all the things that happened in and around of what was going on. It was a bit of baptism by fire for him, wasn't it? Like, and then what really showed me about Katoa this year was what he went and did in the international series. That's when I really woke up and went, yeah, Jesus, man, this kid's a monster. He'll be a top 5 player, top 5 in his position in a few years to come. What I like about about his year is that for his position that he played, he still averaged 80 running meters a game, which I think is really nice. And his defensive efficiency, like, we look at the young guys that's played those types of roles, and you look at like your Sam Walkers and things like that. They're very different body builds. But one of Sam Walker's major issues was that he was his defensive side of it, and being so young and so skinny, that was an issue. Katoa's defense is just fantastic. He's got such a big, beautiful body for him. Like he's just got such a really, really good future, man. And I'm really excited to see him. And they've unearthed the beauty. As long as they can keep him and keep the potential growing, he's ready to go.
Yeah, now, look, before we get into the actual question side of things and obviously do our recap sort of thing, one thing you wanted to speak about, I know, Trav, was the Hammer started really well. He sort of was one of the big reasons they went on a bit of a run early on. And we all remember that freakish try he scored against the Sharkies at almost length of the field. One where it was mentioned towards some of the great tries, length of the field tries we have seen. one of the tries of the year, in my opinion. He then got a bit injured, and then he had to go through the origin period as well. We got to see Trey Fuller emerge, and he was a really good live wire sort of fullback. He's a much more experienced in terms of how old he is, but he's reminded me a lot of Keeney, and sort of the way they were both sort of playing this year is that little sort of fullback that's live wire. He just doesn't stop as the big man's scared because of how good he can move and that sort of thing. I know you want to discuss this one, but it sort of creates a bit of a headache, not just for this year and how they were able to balance out in the run home and maybe going off results. They didn't do that perfectly at all and weren't able to work out the best ways to do that. But it also means moving forward, obviously the Fuller ACL is a massive blow and he'll probably be out for a lot of next year if he's back at all, which is a huge blow for the Dolphins. But let's just talk hypothetical as if he was in next year and the way that balanced up in terms of what you saw this year and then moving into the future.
I think the Fuller injury is huge. And I think they're going to look at that going, that's very disappointing. I like next year was going to be a big year, and I reckon they had their fullback ready to go, and that was Fuller. I honestly reckon they were ready to make a tough decision, and I think they need to. I don't think Hammer's a fullback. I think he's a good plug and play when he has to, when the injuries happen or whatever. But I don't think he's their fullback. I think Hammer is way better out in the centers. I think in that kind of like origin sort of turbo play that Turbo does in those origin games through the centers, I think Hammer's got that. And I think Hammer would just be absolutely enormous in that position. And I think that's a no-brainer for him. But yeah, their hands being pulled. Unfortunately, Fuller does his ACL in the resis, and that stuffs him. But yeah, hypothetically, if that doesn't happen, I think the tough decision had to be made, and I think Hammer needed to be pulled out of the fullback, which is a shame. Well, not a shame, but which is interesting because they signed him to play fullback, didn't they? Right, so they poached him from the Cowboys basically to play fullback, and he went there with the view that he was going to be. He knew that he wasn't going to get that at the Cowboys, so he was going to be. That's what they got him at Miami, at the Miami Dolphins. I'm thinking of the NFL at the Redcliffe Dolphins, and so yeah, it's interesting. And I wonder if the ACL kind of hurts Fuller and potential of what happens in 2026. I think that's going to hurt him really, really dearly. And that's a big shame because I thought he was really good. And I thought he made a big difference to the way that they played. And I think Hammer in the centers, just whilst his numbers didn't stack up in terms of what he potentially can do, he had to play a different role. But I actually think he was better in the centers when they put him there.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting, I guess, headache to have moving forward. Unfortunately, it won't be one that Wolf will have a problem for this year coming into 2025. But let's go into some of the quick fire, rapid fire questions. What was your key moment of the year for the Dolphins?
Yeah, I've got two. The first one is what we sort of spoke about a bit already, is the Flegler injury. I just, the 4 games in, he was playing really well. He sort of freed them up, coincided with when he got injured that they sort of went on that crappy run. So I thought that was a really key moment. But then I've got in big stars the Fuller ACL injury, and I think that was a really I think that's a really big moment, unfortunately, for them. And what happens next year. But I guess that the positive for it is that it happened at the end of the year, which means, preseason and things, they can go out and fix that problem.
I went the Tom Gilbert injury in the preseason just because it sort of was one of those moments, because it felt like they had a couple of really nice signings. The Dolphins are shaping up really well to be a top 8 team this year. I had them sort of in that sort of 8th position at the start of the year with some predictions, and it was a huge blow because we've seen last year how big he is for the club and how much of a leader he's quickly become there. And just to lose one of their big inspirational leaders when, they've got an experienced bunch, but they needed that guy who's on the field, just that hard nose, hard edge, doesn't take any crap from anybody. To lose that without him even getting to play a minute this year And after having a very limited minute-wise season last year as well, it just really hurt him. And it would have been a bit of a gut punch, I felt like, in a way, to do that before the season even started. Surprise packet of the year. I've got to go Max Plath, just because like not many people are talking about him at all being that sort of player and what he has become this year. And he's honestly one of the first I'd pick next year in their lineup. And that's given the fact that Tom Gilbert has to come back, Tom Flegler has to come back. I know all these players are coming back into this lineup, and you would have originally probably had Gilbert as your lock, but the way Max Plath played this year, I've almost got Max Plath as my must-have lock. And the way the modern game is, he just almost has to be a must-pick, in my opinion, Trav.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think I've said it already. I think Plath is one of those types of dudes now with the way the modern games. He's just the perfect prototype for the body, his athleticism, what he does, his grit, his heart. He's an easy one to start a whole team around. The way that he plays and what he can do. You know, if you've got that ball playing lock that he is, every club would be sitting there other than Penrith are sitting there going, I'd love to have Plath. I want that ball playing lock. I think he's a gun. I went the surprise packet of an overall thing, of an overall piece of attacking power was my surprise packet. That multiple players scored 10 plus tries this year. Hammer still got 10 plus. Psycho, we talked about him having, a poorer year to his standards of what he pushed out in 2023, but he still put up, I think it was 14 tries. Herbie has a few, and then you lock in a Bostock as a rookie this year, like multiple dudes getting 10 plus try scores.
Yeah, who needs a big 2025 in your opinion, Trav?
I'm sorry. Can I give you 3? Because unfortunately, I have to, because I've got to go by the coach. He's taken over from Bennett. As I said, he's, arguably the GOAT of coaches. So that experience in games, what he's done, he basically built the club. And now someone's got to step in and sort that out. They're also losing Bromwich. So he's got a really big job this preseason and next year. So I've gone the coach. And then the second one I'll actually give you 2. I won't give you 3. I'll give you 2. The second one I've gone is the medical staff, fitness across the board. They've got to keep that team healthy. They've just got to keep them healthy.
I have got and locked in the Jake Averillo for mine. Needs to have a big 2025. I thought there was little bits of patches where we got to see him and sort of the skill he has, but I really rate Jake Averillo as a player. I rate him a lot last year in Footer's days, and I was surprised they let him go, to be honest with you. I heard obviously there was a bit of rumors around why they did that, but I just think he's a great on-field talent. There's I know they've lost Trey Fuller, but there's even for me, I think Averillo's played some good football at the back at fullback. So maybe that's a possibility they look into next year. But I know one thing for sure, it's a big year for him in terms of consistency. He needs to be consistent. He needs to make sure he's on that field almost every week, demanding a starting spot, because I think he can be a really good sort of underlying sort of attacking option for the Dolphins. You talk about Hammer, Farnworth, Katoa, they're always going to get the ball. People are always going to defend them. He's sort of the one that can go under the radar and be a real big strike weapon, I think, for the Dolphins next year.
Well, he still went under the radar this year. He had 11 tries. He played 23 games. He had 12 try assists. He had 10 line breaks. He had 55 tackle breaks. Mate, if you're saying he can have imagine more. You're telling him to step up, damn, I can't wait to see that next year if that's what he's put up with stats this year.
Look at his stats from last year with the Dogs. I bet you it was a lot more than that. So I can't wait to see what he can produce next year. Player of the year. It was a weird one. I'm doing a double up. I haven't done many of those this year. I'm going Maxi Plath. He is my player of the year for the Dolphins. Trav?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. I couldn't pick anyone else. He was huge this year. He had a really good year. I actually think he won the club player of the year as well. So, that was a no-brainer.
There it is, guys. There is our Dolphins review for 2024. Obviously, we'll do a season preview and things like that for the Dolphins in 2025 early in the year. But hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, hit all that sort of stuff. Also on the social media side of things. Share it around. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your mates to go ahead, give us a listen, and go from there. So thank you. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, slide into the DMs, any questions and things like that regarding the episode. Happy to answer them off air. But yeah, bye for now.